Hello and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennett. On today's episode, we are welcoming my good friend, Johnathan Mayo. Johnathan is a passionate social entrepreneur, youth development advocate, holds advanced degrees from VMI and VCU, and the founder and CEO of Team Excel, a gamification platform that helps schools improve student well-being and performance by leveraging the power of teamwork and the excitement of competition. Welcome, Johnathan. Hey, Johnathan, how you doing today?
Andy, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for taking some time to meet with me today. I should have looked beforehand. I'm not even sure the specific time at which we met. It feels like a lot longer than it probably is. But
Yeah,
we hit it off from the beginning, wouldn't you say?
yeah, that's right. We really did. Really did from that first conversation.
Yep, that's super fun. Super fun. So before we dive in, I'd love to just give you an opportunity to kind of tell the listeners a little bit about yourself so they get to know you a little bit better, and then we'll dive into a few questions specific to what you're doing. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so again, Johnathan Mayo. I'm here and I'm based in Richmond, Virginia. Let's see, gosh, I'm a husband, a father, two beautiful young daughters. And work in the field of education. It's funny, my mom I always tell people the most important thing that ever happened to me in my life was I was born the son of an educator. My
Right?
mother taught school for 37 years in the same middle
Wow,
school. She actually opened it with her first job, and when she retired, she was
that's so
the
cool.
last teacher from the original staff.
Wow.
Um, and she was a math teacher, so she groomed me to be an engineer.
There you go.
So I was
There you
joking
go.
about that. So that's how I started my career. After college, I went to Virginia Military Institute, majored in mechanical engineering,
Okay.
played football through college.
Nice.
And after college, I worked as an engineer for a few years, but always had the entrepreneur bug. So,
Hmm.
did engineering, but then was drawn back to entrepreneurship and youth and education, which,
Right.
I always tell people I got that passion from really seeing my mom be that second mom, that auntie, all of those things to her
Right.
students. As we know, in the world of education,
Sure.
teachers are they're more than, they're not just teachers. They're really
Right.
mentors and, become family to a lot of young
Right.
people. So,
Right.
yeah, that's who I am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, what a legacy that your mom left for that school, right? Starting it and then being the last one to leave from the original staff. That's super cool. So, kudos to her. And
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. I could see why you're drawn to education. You probably didn't have much of a choice in the matter, did you?
it's in my blood.
There you go. I
Yeah,
love it.
it's
I
in my
love it.
blood.
That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny. So you mentioned kind of an entrepreneurial bug or kind of spirit. Did your mom have that as well, or where did that come from, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was the other thing that was in my blood. I think
Okay.
education and entrepreneurship were just in my
Mhm.
blood because, growing up, I really didn't have entrepreneurs right around me
Mhm.
per se. My mom taught school for 37 years.
Right.
Unfortunately, my father wasn't really around,
Okay.
um, much from the time I was a little kid.
Mhm.
So I really didn't see too many entrepreneurs around. But even as a young man, one of my aunts, she had one of the biggest paper routes you could ever imagine. Like I used to actually spend the night at her house Saturday nights because the Sunday paper route was so huge.
Right.
I would get up at like 3 a.m. with my
Oh my
cousin
gosh.
and my aunt and help with the paper route. And she had this little Chevette, and I would sit in the back and throw
Yeah.
papers out. And then after that, I got my own paper route.
Okay.
I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old, and then I had my
All
own
right.
lawn business, and
Okay.
so it's just kind of been in my blood. But I did
Love
see
it.
my aunt, like that was kind of even though she was working for the paper, like it was kind of an extra
Mhm.
thing,
Mhm.
that she was doing, and I don't know, yeah,
Yeah.
not sure where it came from.
I love it. No, that's very cool. It's kind of fun to kind of think back of like how, what was the genesis of how that all started. So that's super fun. You mentioned football, and this has nothing to do with empowered learning or anything, but I have to know what position did you play? How did that all go? I'm a big football fan as well.
Yes, I was a middle linebacker,
Okay.
and loved football. Loved the sport. Played from the time I was a kid playing little league. I remember the first year. my mom didn't let me play. I
Yeah.
remember, I remember, and I
Scared
used to
mom, I get
live
it.
right, yeah, scared
Yep.
mom. She's like, I don't know, and I used to ride my bicycle up to the little league field, and then the next year she let me play, and so from midget football in little league all the way through college,
Very cool.
loved the sport, which a lot of those just those lessons learned of like being on the team, a lot of things that I'm sure we'll
Mhm.
talk about with Team Excel, but
Right, right. I, I
it's
was I was gonna say I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, right? But I can kind of start seeing, right, the education, the entrepreneurial, the sports. I mean, it's kind of all coming together. So that's very cool. I can see how that would all play together.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but played football, middle linebacker, played all the way through college at Virginia Military Institute, VMI, and yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the VMI. What drew you to that? Were you not drafted? What's the right word? Were you recruited to go
Recruited.
to VMI, or what was? How did that all come to be?
Yeah, I was recruited to go to play at VMI. And I'll tell you a funny story. I remember the first year the recruiter came to my high school, and at that time I didn't know anyone that had been to VMI personally. And all I knew it was at the time it was all male. It's integrated now, but it
Okay,
was all male military school. And I was
right.
thinking those are two things I'm not interested in. I'll be one of those things for college.
Yeah.
Um, and so I told my coach, I said, "Nah, I don't really want to talk to him. I'm not interested in VMI." He said, "Well, it's a good school. They got a good engineering program." He knew I was interested in engineering, and he said, "You should at least talk to him." And it's a great school.
Mhm.
So I said, "Okay." I didn't have one a guy with a ton of offers. So I said, "Well, let me check it out." And went up to the school and went on an official visit. And it was, if you know anything about VMI, I mean, the barracks is where you live, and everything is
Right.
drab. And it just like told my mom, like, no way I'm coming here.
Right.
But I ended up going there. I ended up realizing
Yeah.
they had a great engineering school, um, small classes. I thought, hey, this is a place
Mhm.
I could continue to play football.
Mhm.
Um, and they offered me a full scholarship. To be honest with me, I was
Wow.
raised by a single, parent mother, and I had an older sister. And I always promised my mom I would get a full scholarship. And
Right.
so, I didn't want to put that burden of paying for college on
Sure.
her. And so VMI offered me a full ride, and
Mhm.
so I'm very grateful for that opportunity to play football, get a great education.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That's really cool. Really, really cool. So just we've kind of talked around it a little bit, but what we'll get to Team Excel and what you're working on now, but what day to day, I guess, what inspires and motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning that makes you love what you do and move forward with that. Or maybe that's cart before the horse a little bit, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Andy, I would say what really motivates me is really being able to help motivate young people.
Mm,
And a lot of that also goes back to when I was a young man playing football and playing sports. And
mm,
I think about some of my friends that I didn't have I didn't have a chance, or option to do well in school. My mom being
mm,
a teacher, so I
mm,
always did very well in school. And so I tell young people, like, I got a free college education in football because I was in the top five of my class in
mm,
high school. So my grades were great. And I always
right,
tell people I was a decent football player, but I had
mm,
awesome grades. And that afforded me a chance to get a free education.
mm,
And I think about some of my friends that were like amazing, exceptional athletes,
right,
but did not have the grades and did
right,
not go to college, and I
mm,
still see some of my friends today that they'll tell me like, Mayo, man, I wish I would have studied more like you. I wish I had
mm,
taken, school more seriously. And,
right,
I think about some of my buddies coming up that did not get it done in the classroom. And so
mm,
being able to now try to impact young people so they don't have those regrets
right,
later in life,
right,
they can seize those opportunities now because we know young people sometimes they don't see 10, 15, 20 years
right,
into the future
or
and
one.
understand the consequences. Oh, one, that's right. Oh,
Right.
one, oh, a week.
Yes, exactly right.
um, so being able to work with young people um, day to day, and as day to day of what I do, there's a lot of what I do in the day to day
Mhm,
activities. But when I'm in the school, just yesterday I was at a school and they were rewarding the winning Team Excel team for this last competition with an ice cream
mhm.
party, and just
Oh,
just
cool.
being able to be around the students,
Right.
getting my feel of getting that motivation and being around the young people is really what keeps me going when
Hmm.
things get tough.
Gotcha. That's super cool. So before we dive into Team Excel, which is really kind of how we got connected, you mentioned that you started off in engineering and that you were excelling at that and doing well. I think you had said something about working with Verizon and a couple different, pretty large corporations at this point. What do you remember? Was there like a particular moment where you're like, this is great and all, but it's not my passion? Was there a turning point in your life that says, I want to pursue Team Excel? I want to give back. I want to do something that has a lasting effect. What was that moment?
Yeah, I would say early on in my corporate days, I think I knew I wanted to do something more. And even before Team Excel, we started a company. I started a company with a good friend of mine called Avail.
Okay.
And we started that company with a really we just started with the mission of how can we help the community.
Hmm.
And a funny story, when we came up with the name Avail, he was my college roommate at
Hmm.
VMI. He was also an engineer. So you have two engineers trying to start a company. So the first thing we do is think about, okay, what are we going to name it? And we actually got the dictionary and
Uh-huh.
started in front of the dictionary. We didn't get far. We
That
came
is
across the
funny.
word avail,
Like,
and the meaning is to be of help or service. And so we said, that's it. And so we started a company, Avail, which is still actually incorporated today,
okay.
um, that was founded as a way to help the community and particularly nonprofits
Hmm.
raise money and raise awareness. So we actually started kind of a fundraising company,
Okay.
helping like little leagues and
Mhm.
schools with fundraisers. And we kind of evolved to doing like special events. And from there, we evolved to working with professional athletes, helping them run their
Oh, wow.
foundations
Okay.
and doing all of their community work. So all of that kind of started, which really led me up to starting Team Excel because we were working with the athlete and with this foundation. That's when I came
Hmm.
up with the Team Excel model.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Did I spell that right? AVAIL?
AVAIL, that's
Yeah,
correct.
that's cool. Isn't that hilarious how
Yeah.
it just that you're like, oh, I'm sure it was like this, lightning moment of like, this is the name. It's like,
Yeah.
that'll work, right? I love it. That's too funny.
Yeah. And I did that for a while, like working a full-time job as an engineer and kind of doing the bail on the side. And was working for Verizon, and they actually offered a voluntary severance package for anyone in management back in 2003.
Hmm.
And I think if I remember right, I think the HR person got fired after that because
Oh, wow. Yeah.
normally they do targeted packages, and they just say anyone in management,
All right.
no matter how many years of service. So I
Huh.
said, hey, this is the time for me to take that leap. And
Interesting.
I was not married at the time, no kids, and I said, hey, if I'm going to take this leap and
Right.
do this thing full time, this is
Gotcha.
the time to do it. So yeah,
Interesting.
that's when I went full time. 2003 is when I left Verizon.
That what an odd marketing plan, right? Like, hey, all of our senior marketing people or senior folks here, we'll pay you to leave. Like, what? Okay.
Right.
All right. That seems
Yeah,
like
they
a
didn't, they
God
didn't
thing. It's like,
expect
all right,
so many
Jonathan.
young people. Yeah.
Right.
And from what I understand, they didn't expect that many young people to leave, which
Yeah.
what ended up happening. A lot of younger people
Sure.
took the package. They were thinking people that had, a lot more years of
Oh,
service would
okay.
leave.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I doubt they would try that now. You would have a mass
they've
exit.
never done it
Gotta go.
again. Yeah.
Peace out. I'm out of here. Right. Oh
Yeah,
my
they've never
gosh.
done it again. And since then, it's been very targeted
That's
since
hilarious.
since that time.
So funny. So all of that kind of led to Team Excel. So I am so excited. My team and I are really so excited about helping you grow this amazing platform. But for those that don't know what Team Excel is, give your best kind of elevator pitch, and then we can kind of dive into it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so basically, Team Excel, you can think of it as sort of reverse fantasy sports, but for education. And
Okay.
so what we do is we use the power of teamwork and excitement of competition as a way to, help kids do better in school. And so we do that by putting kids on teams, they're able to compete based on metrics like grades, attendance, positive behavior, community service hours. And by leveraging that peer-to-peer accountability and peer support that you get from being on the team, we
Hmm.
really create that environment where kids are motivating each other to do better in the classroom and in life. And so we actually saw 27% increase in grade point average from the first group that we started Team Excel with.
Wow.
But yeah, that's kind of the model in a nutshell.
So tell me, and I was trying to remember everything as you're going through this. So tracks, grades, attendance. I know you can kind of customize that. What are kind of the 3 or 4 that are most often used as far as metrics for that?
Yeah, I would say the 3 most used metrics are grades, attendance, and behavior.
Behavior, gotcha. And
Yeah.
then you can customize.
And then the 4th would be community service.
Okay, and then service, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no. So I absolutely love this. This obviously resonates with some of the work that my company is doing as well. But just what a cool idea. I guess back to this, I know that I kind of got a little bit off track earlier talking about sports, right? In football, are you a fantasy sports guy? Did that influence a little bit of the Team Excel aspect of things?
Yeah, you know what's funny, Andy? I've never played fantasy sports.
What? You're using that as the thing. I love it. That's so funny.
So people ask me all the time. It's like one of the first questions I get, oh, you play fantasy? I say, you know what? I've never played fantasy. Every year I say, I want to play next year. I'm going to play next year. And I've still never played it. I obviously understand what it is, but
right.
Well, I'm in multiple leagues. Get a team. Okay.
I'm in multiple leagues. We'll get connected on that. That's too funny. Oh my gosh. I would not have guessed that answer. That's pretty funny.
Right.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So my goodness, yeah, there's just so much to dive into right there. I guess tell me some of your current successes. I guess what was the first school or district that you brought on that you're like, man, there's something here. Like this could be something big. What was that moment?
Yeah, we started in Richmond. People will know Richmond, Virginia. Actually, it's in Henrico County, which is a county, outside of the city of Richmond. And that's where we started. It's actually the county I grew up in and went to school in. We started in a different school. Eventually added my old high school. But we started a school, Verona High School. We started with 30 students in the pilot program. They were all student athletes at the time, and we served all students, but they were boys and girls. They played all different sports. And we would meet an hour before school. They would come early, and we would start a session off by, we would, back then, this was, predating the digital platform, and we actually were manually pulling the data out of Power School, their student information system, putting it in Excel. I had a leaderboard built in PowerPoint, and I actually had sheets of paper. The kids would come in, they would grab their score sheets, which would have their individual score, their team score, and they would see the winning team of the day. So we would meet once a week, and every other week we would have a prize for the team in first place. And then during those sessions, we would really cover everything from like life skills. So we may have sessions on like goal setting, communication skills, study skills, different life skills, or we may have a guest speaker. So there was a career exploration component. And then there was also a service learning component. So we may, be undergoing a service learning project. So those were kind of the elements of the, just the substance of the kind of curriculum, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But everything was built around the competition. So the kids got really excited about the competition. We had mentors from different corporate partners. Capital One, one of our very first partners. We had kind of a Capital One team. They were staffed with all Capital One volunteers. And those team leaders, team coaches, we call them, they would come every week, and they would be, so about a team of 10 students, there were probably about 4, kind of group mentors that would come in and kind of help facilitate that weekly activity. And everybody got excited about the competition. So the students, the volunteers, the mentors, the adults are just as competitive as the kids. And it was fun. It was fun, healthy competition. Everybody, the kids would come as soon as they came in. They wanted to grab those score sheets and see how they were, see how they were doing, see who was winning. But a lot of it was also just fun team building exercises, and even as we talk to schools now, and talk about the process, there is a process, and the first part of the process is you have to get kids to care about each other, love each other. Trust each other. And once you do that in a small peer group, and we know peer groups work, I mean, we use it in all elements of society. But once you can build that, now I don't want to let the team down. So now my grades, attendance is not just my grades, But
right.
if Andy and I on the team, hey, it's the team's great. So I don't want to be
Mhm.
the one to let the team down. And also, I know I have a team that if I'm going through something or I'm struggling with something, I can also get support and encouragement from that team. And that's, the foundation, that is the foundation of Team
Mhm.
Excel, is creating those small groups of strong peer groups to push each other and motivate each other and hold each other accountable.
Right, right. Wow. I mean, that is a word that I don't know. I guess depending on the circle, seems kind of like a dirty word at this point. But my gosh, does our world need some accountability, right?
We
My
do.
goodness.
Yeah.
And what a cool idea to teach those concepts in the school setting before they. I mean, I've got two high school boys, and I feel kind of like you're running out of time, right? It's like one of those things, like how can I instill these life lessons that they need to thrive as they move on with life and become adults. So bringing in successful mentors to come in there and just yeah, the competition is fun like this, but I agree with you. I think that's really where it's at. I mean, if you can build that team atmosphere where we're all relying on each other, and that's fun in the moment, but what a cool concept to bring on into life, because you don't go through life alone. So that's very cool, man.
That's right. Yeah. And that's, even we think about sports, we think about it's the relationships that last, and the same what you're
Right.
saying, like the
Yeah.
teamwork, like that's a
Yep.
skill that you can use your entire life. You're not going to work anywhere where you're just totally isolated on your
Hmm.
own. You're going
Right.
to have a group of people that you work with, even in your family. Like your family is a team. We would tell like
Hmm.
your family it's a team.
Right.
And so at work it's a team. So anywhere, unless you plan on going off into the mountains and just living off by yourself, you're going to have to function,
Right.
as part of a team and
Right.
building that team trust. And I'll tell you a story from, there's actually a young man who works with Team Excel now,
Hmm.
who was a Team Excel student. He started in the
Okay.
eighth grade
Oh,
at our
cool.
first middle school, John Rolfe Middle School. And he went to Verona. He graduated from William and Mary College in the spring. Now he actually works with us with Team
Hmm.
Excel. And I'll tell you a story about him. Kind of speaks to like building trust.
Okay.
We come back from a field trip, and kids being kids, they had put all kinds of stuff like in a bottle and daring kids to drink it. So one of the
Oh.
young little girls drunk whatever it was, and I, kind of got on her like, you don't know what's in that bottle. You can't, you can't just. And she said, well, Alton did it. I know if Alton did it, he wouldn't have put anything in there that hurt me. And I was like, that just, which he didn't.
Wow.
It was just like
Yeah.
different drinks he had.
Yeah.
Um, but it just really spoke to how she had trust in this young man, and
Hmm.
she knew, yeah, it may have been different kinds of sodas, a different thing, but it wasn't going
Right.
to be in anything in there gross,
Right.
anything that was going to really hurt her.
Sure.
Which kind of spoke to like just the trust they had built as
Hmm.
being on teams and being in Team Excel together. 'Cause they had been together by that point, several
Hmm.
years. So I thought that story that just kind of always
Absolutely.
stuck with me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those moments as a teacher or parent or whatever, where it's like, yeah, it is making a difference. Sometimes it's like I don't really see it, but like those moments, it's like, yep, that'll keep me going for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting those moments. It's funny you say that. We were meeting with the school, and one of the coaches we were working, one of the high school football coaches that they're using
Hmm.
Team Excel, and he mentioned this young man's name and said, "Yeah, one of our coaches said he was in Team Excel," and I didn't remember the name immediately. We've had a ton
Hmm.
of kids to come through it at this
Right.
point, and he invited him to the next meeting. When he walked in, I knew exactly who he was,
Hmm.
and just to hear him, years later, and hear him talk about Team Excel and telling the coach
Hmm.
like, "Hey, my experience, and hey, it was a good thing we had mentors and did this,"
Hmm.
and like how he remembered and just talked about how it impacted his life. It was just
Yeah.
really cool to just hear him say that, because, like to your point, sometimes you don't know, hey, is this really working? It's making an
Right.
impact. But to see a young
Sure.
man reflect on his experience with it and how it made an impact on it, he still had that positive thoughts of it and wanted to now see it, be able on the other end and see it
Hmm.
impact the kids in the school, because he's actually working at that school now,
That's cool.
which was really cool. That was a
Right.
really cool moment.
That's awesome. So, um, just kind of a wrap-up question here. Time flies when we're having fun, right?
Yeah.
You're very passionate about, making an impact on kids. You kind of told us your story of how you got here. So looking back on that, thinking about your passions and motivations as far as being an educator and as an entrepreneur, what would you say is the most important piece of advice that you would give your 18-year-old self? I was thinking, like, do we want to give that to kids? But you have that every day. But if you could go back, in time, all back in future, back to the future style right there, what advice would you give yourself at 18?
Gosh, at 18. That's a good question, Andy.
I stumped you. Mm.
Yeah, I would say just learn, like
Mm-hmm.
soak up all the experiences. I would say, one thing I share with young people now that I would have done more of is building relationships. Like I think I've done a decent job of that, but relationships are just so important in life and career. Um, I think just being more intentional, because sometimes when you're young, you're just thinking about your day to day and tomorrow, but
Mm-hmm.
invest in time and relationships,
Mm-hmm.
because you realize the older you get, it's harder to build relationships, strong relationships as you get the older you get. And so I would say just invest in more time and like having a vast network of people that you
Right.
you have a strong relationship with.
I love it. I love it. You did
Yeah.
great. Even though I caught you off guard, that was great. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So, like we talked before, we're going to do a grab bag question. So I've got 20 questions. I've vetted all of them. They're all good, but I don't know which one you're going to get. So give me just a second here.
Okay.
See what comes. There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. So here's our little spinner, and we're going to see which one of your 20 questions you get. So here we go. All right. Which one is it? It's going to be question 19. All right. So looking at my little cheat sheet here, question 19 is, in your opinion, what is the most important personality trait or strength someone would need to work in your industry? Let's say as an entrepreneur, what is the most important personality trait or strength they would need to become an entrepreneur? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an easy one, Andy. Thank you.
Oh, well, there you go. We follow up a hard
You
one with
made
the
up
easy one.
for it. You
Like
made up for it.
it.
I have to say perseverance.
Okay.
Being an entrepreneur, there's so many ups and downs. There's so many challenges. You're probably going to have more frustrating days than the good days, especially early on. And being able to really push through when you
Mm-hmm.
probably, like if you were being realistic, you probably wouldn't push through.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
so you have to have such a strong belief and passion about what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. And I've shared with young people, like I've had you know people listening may not, when we talk about runway in the startup, kind of communities, like how much cash you have in the bank to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stared down like 2 weeks of runway,
Yeah.
which is, most people wouldn't tolerate getting even close to that. But,
Mm-hmm.
things obviously worked out. But I would have to say it's because of my strong passion and belief in what I'm doing, and thinking about it in terms of like, this is something bigger than me.
Right.
And that if I fail, there's a bigger impact than just my
Mm-hmm.
failure.
Right.
And so being able to persevere in those times of adversity and challenges, to just push through when
Mm-hmm.
logic tells you that you
Right.
probably
Right.
shouldn't push through.
Yep.
So yeah, I would have to say that's the number one, character trait that you have to have. And it starts with having a strong belief and passion in something. Because if you
Uh-huh.
don't have that, you're not going to push through
Right.
if you
Right.
don't have that strong belief and passion in something. But definitely
Exactly right.
perseverance.
Exactly right. I mean, it's one of those things, like, you pretty quickly tell who the ones that are in it for the right reason are the ones that
Yeah,
have I don't know, the stones. That's probably not the right term for it,
that's
but
right.
to get through it, because it is tough. So I agree.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I hate that our time is coming to the end here, but we've got three key questions we're going to ask all of our guests. So, and hopefully you had a little chance to kind of read through these. So, number one, who is the leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
I thought about that question a lot, Andy. Being a sports guy playing football, it
Mhm.
was one of my coaches,
Okay.
Coach Clark, Michael Clark. He was my linebackers coach at BMI. I guess it was my senior year,
Hmm.
and he was just a guy. In football, especially on the defensive side, and you got
Hmm.
probably offense too, but just how coaches, curse at kids and just berate, just the
Right.
way what goes on on the football field. But he was one of these guys that was just even keel,
Mm.
just smart. You knew he cared about you deeply, and he could get you so motivated just with words and the way he treated and
Hmm.
cared about his players without having to like yell and scream and all these antics. And
Hmm.
that he just always had a lasting impression on me. He left BMI and went to Bridgewater College and had a great career as a head coach there. And actually, I just talked to him about a year ago. He retired, and I reached out to him. I had a chance to talk with him and shared that with him. And he was one of the people I admired and made an impact on me.
That's cool. That's very cool. Yep. Coaches definitely have that potential, I should say. Not all of them do, to your point.
Right,
There's the ones that are
right,
the yellers, the screamers, the throwing chairs, right?
right.
But no, that's very cool. I agree with that. That's pretty awesome. All right, how about number two? What learning has most impacted you in the last year? Could be a book, a conference, podcast. What has most impacted you in the last year?
Yeah, I would say so. We have a sales coach that we work with, and one thing that she's been really honest about is like really getting into a process,
Okay.
a sales process, and
Okay.
that's something that I'm still working on. Like I haven't perfected it, but I definitely see the value, when she talks about like using our CRM religiously and just being able to stick with a process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen that in order for us to continue to grow the way we want to grow, that's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm going to have to do. And so I've,
Right.
I've been getting a little bit better at it, but I still, that's what I told her. That's one of my New Year's resolutions is to use my
Yeah.
CRM every day. And,
I can
so
relate.
yeah,
I can relate to that one.
yeah,
Tamara will laugh at that because she'll be like, "Yeah, you
yeah,
need to listen to that too." So that's
that's right.
hilarious. All right, last one here. Question number three. Kind of like the podcast is named here. How would you? And I think you're kind of already in this lane, so this should be a slam dunk for you. How would you empower learning for future generations?
Yeah, I think it starts with the motivation,
Mm-hmm.
having kids motivated to learn. But I think empowering learning, I think the one word that comes to my mind, in addition to motivation is exposure.
Mm,
I think as we expose young people to more careers and more opportunities
right.
and get them in a position that they can resonate with something that they really
Mm-hmm.
feel strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's when learning occurs because now it's something they generally have um, curiosity about and they
Right.
want to learn. And if you
Right.
don't, it's hard to learn if you don't have curiosity. And so
That
I think
is.
if we can match, and I think school districts are doing a better job with this actually. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's more like these academies and
Mm-hmm.
CTE, if it's a CTE, like really connecting kids with the things that they have an interest in.
Right.
Um, I think when you do that, I think you really empower them to learn because now they
Mm-hmm.
have a curiosity and
Right.
genuine interest in a particular area. And
Right.
then the learning becomes natural because it's something they want to do and they're not forced to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I love it. And I do see, similar kind of moves in that direction. I don't know if, high schools are there yet, but I do see that it is getting better. I think we're trending the
It's
right
getting
direction,
better.
towards something that is more I don't know. Sir Ken Robinson has an amazing video talking about education and how the education system. I think we're getting away from it, but really is kind of based on this whole industrial model where it's like we put them through this line and everybody gets the
Yeah,
same education, and that's not human nature. That is not
it's
that's not
not.
engaging. So I think we're going the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going in the right direction. Still a ways to go. And actually, a buddy of mine, he's kind of working on something similar
Mm,
in this space. I have to share his
yeah,
information
for
with you, but
sure. I
he
would
might
love to.
actually be a potential guest for you. But
I would
he
love
speaks
that.
about inspiring kids and
Hmm.
matching them with their passion.
Hmm.
That's the work he's all about.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
So.
Very cool. Well, Jonathan, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close out?
Um, I don't think so. I just,
Okay.
I appreciate this opportunity
Yeah, man.
to be one of your guests, and it's
Oh,
been great.
buddy.
The time definitely went fast, and
I know, right?
definitely appreciate the building this relationship with you,
For
Andy, and
sure.
we share so many things in common, and trying to make a difference in the lives of our young people. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate this opportunity. Looking forward to working more hand in
Oh,
hand
yeah.
with you.
Just the beginning, my friend. We got lots more coming here. So,
That's right.
all right. Very cool. Well, thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Thank you.